Hi, Simon Pink on Poppyland Radio. Good to have you join us. And talking about joining us, we've got, well, actually not quite in the studio, but on Zoom at the moment is Alan Fish from the band Egypt. They are fantastic. Go and check them out. We've just been talking about their website address, which is egypt-blues.co.uk. Check the gigs out there. And we've just heard one of their numbers. Fantastic band. They really are fantastic. So, Alan, some of the gear that you use, and I'm a muso, so I sort of understand it. You're a bass player, and you play a Fender bass, and you've got some gear that is a few years old now, by the looks of it. But it just sounds amazing. It's warm and a lovely. And because you're a bassist, you can feel it pressing into your stomach in the audience. It's just fantastic. So, what is the gear that you actually use?
Well, it's Trace Elliott cabs. They weigh a ton, but they do sound good, you know. And I've got a Trace Elliott amp, and also I use a main amp occasionally, M-A-I-N-E. Very, very old. Looks like a cooker switch is on the front of it, but that does sound good. But I've started using this drum because I had a few problems with that, and it's hard to get spares for it. So I'm keeping that as a spare amp now and using an old Trace Elliott with the cabs, so I've been using them a lot together. And I use the precision bass. I've used that for many years. It used to belong to Steve Harris. He actually gave it to me.
Wow! What, from Iron Maiden? Steve Harris, Iron Maiden. Yeah. Wow! Yeah. Okay.
Well, they're very old friends actually, because what happened? A guy called Paul Sampson, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but he was the engineer on our first album, and he became very good friends. And Bruce Dickinson used to sing with him before he joined Iron Maiden in the band Samson. So that's the connection there. And I had my original precision bass stolen when we were in Birmingham one night, and a few other things, not just mine. But and Paul said, "Oh, I'll get your bass," and that was one that spare one that Steve Harris had. So that's the one I've got now.
Wow, how cool is that? That is amazing. That is amazing. Let's bring things a bit more up to date now. So obviously, you know, we've had COVID. Things have really been quite difficult for us musicians. We've got Brexit and stuff like that. For touring abroad has been awkward. What's your thoughts on the state of music and going abroad and stuff at the moment, Alan?
Well, it seems to be just getting back to sort of live gigs. You know, I mean, people are reluctant to actually go out to playing live gigs. Well, understandably with COVID, and quite a few of the bands who've started playing immediately caught COVID. I mean, our guitarist did the first gig we did back at the Walnut Tree in Norwich. The next day, so I got COVID, you know. But it's I think it's getting back to normal. People are just sort of saying now that's just one of those things you've got to learn to live with, the bands especially, because you're mixing with people all the time, obviously. And a lot of gigs unfortunately did fall by the wayside and closed, but a lot of them have still sort of stayed the course and are opening up with live music again, and it's nice to see it. It's just on the up. But this year has kind of been awkward because a lot of people weren't prepared to book gigs throughout this year, not knowing whether they're going to be in lockdown again and that kind of stuff. So it's taken a long while to get back to normal. You probably found that yourself, you know. But and there's quite a lot of bands looking for fewer gigs. So consequently, you've got a sort of backlog of bands all trying to get into gigs, you know. But we've just stuck to local gigs, basically, keeping in the UK, because touring abroad has just priced itself out of the market at the moment. We checked one or two things. I mean, it's just going to cost £1,000 just to go to Germany and back. Ferry and fuel and that kind of stuff. So you've got to, you know, before it was just hundreds of pounds, but you're looking at a lot of money now. Plus all the jumping through hoops you've got to do with the carnet and green cards, all that kind of stuff. With your gear, that's the biggest thing. If you're taking a van load of gear abroad on a ferry, you've got to list everything. And a couple of the bands who I know have been to France have had lots and lots of trouble with customs. Oh. Even as much as to say the inlays on your guitar, if you've got ivory anywhere, you're importing an endangered species into the country. Oh. And you have to get all these forms signed and all this, you know. It's just crazy. And I actually had loads of offers of gigs, especially in France in the last month or so. Some friends of ours have got venues up in the north of France, and the others are down on the south coast of France as well. But it's just wouldn't be viable financially. It wouldn't be viable to do them at this point.
What a shame! What an absolute shame! That is a shame, isn't it? Oh well, okay. And that's it's the state of music as it is, and we've just got to live with it, I guess. But it's not easy. And talking about music, I mean, music styles have really changed over the years. I mean, back in our day when we were younger, it was at the moment we're in a 3-piece band. It was guitar, bass, drums, and maybe a bit of keyboard, and then everything went a little bit sort of more electro. But it seems to be sort of coming back to playing instruments again now. Hallelujah. What's your thoughts on the changing styles of music?
Oh, I love it. I'd love to see young guys out there doing things. They especially as some of them model themselves on our previous years of heroes, musical heroes like Led Zeppelin and that kind of thing, or like you mentioned, the Beatles, even the Stones, and one or two. A band I don't know if they were around a few years back called the Dandy Warhols.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was the Stones playing when I heard one of those songs, but they're very, very, and the younger bands now are very, very good like that. There's a couple of reminiscent of The Who, but that's another band we supported as well. It's quite interesting. I do like the way music's going. It's got a lot more, as you mentioned a moment ago, the guys playing their own instruments rather than singing along to backing tracks or whatever they manage to do. It's good to see live bands doing that. I'm very, very hopeful for the future.
Brilliant stuff. Look, it's great to have you join us, Alan. Thank you very much for coming in and spending some time with us, talking about what you've done and who you've played with. It's been fascinating. I've really enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll catch up again soon on another show.
Certainly, Simon. It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Alan. Bye-bye.
Bye.